So Kung Fu Panda 4 came out a couple weeks ago, and I was, I guess you could say, fortunate to watch on the 29th of March with my mum and brother in a packed cinema. It actually opened with this quite cool new rendition of the Dreamworks intro that's also in The Last Wish, which I thought was a really nice touch and somewhat set my expectations way too high for the poorly written slop I was about to watch. The film is about how Po's getting old, he has to choose a new dragon warrior to take over from his duties. He ends up choosing himself in denial of the fact that he has to move on. He can't accept change, and eventually he meets Zhen, voiced by Awkwafina, who plays a fox who's a thief stealing from the temple with all the artifacts in. It was somewhat of a funny sequence. She ends up getting locked up and tells Po about the chameleon, who is the big bad guy of the film. Her performance in this film was less grating than other performances I've seen, and I generally liked how she treated the character. She's definitely got a better performance in this than in the Little Mermaid remake and Raya. At the very least, you could tell she was trying with the role. The two dads are in this film, and I thought for the most part they were a nice B-plot to the main story, and it felt nicely slapped in. It wasn't jarring, it complemented it a bit. I don't have much else to say about them. Po's Panda dad was quite a nice addition to the film and made it have an extra nice touch to it. We get introduced to the chameleon visually around 20 minutes into the film with this council of villains, which I thought honestly had some good character design, and I'm upset that this is the only scene where they're in the film, and I would have loved to have seen more of these guys. The chameleon in this scene reveals that she is a shapeshifter, and it's somewhat of a good reveal, and I also laughed my head off at the bear villain rolling down the stairs. I thought that was quite a funny gag. The rest of the movie has Po going on one last mission to stop the chameleon, and they go to Juniper City where Zhen is a wanted criminal. I loved how the place looked, and I wish they developed it more, as it genuinely could have been such an amazing setting had it not been for the poor writing. Juniper City was an interesting location and gave off the vibe of the bustle and crowds of London, mixed in with the look of Chinatown, but sort of older, and I thought they could have utilised it a lot better. I think it's important context that this film was directed by Mike Mitchell, director of Shrek Forever After, The Lego Movie 2, Trolls, and Alvin and the Chipmunks. Chipwrecked. So just so you know, it's going to be great. And the Furious 5 only show up in the credits. They are a main part of the franchise, but in this film they're off on their own adventures, they're sidelined, they're not even present for the actual film, which I think is an excuse for we didn't want to spend the money getting the voice actors back. And it's genuinely aggravating to see a main part of the series just disregarded. Hans Zimmer did a soundtrack for the film, including a version of Crazy Train. I thought was interesting how they made the sound fit with the action scene and the context. At the very end of the film in the credits scene, they play a cover of Baby One More Time, but done by Tenacious D, which I thought was somewhat of a nice touch to the film as well, as I quite liked Tenacious D personally. The animation was an improvement compared to the first three, and it was quite visually interesting at times, although nothing close to the level of other recent films like Last Wish and Spider-Verse. From here on out there's going to be spoilers, so spoiler warning, but it's Kung Fu Panda 4, so I doubt you're going to give two shits. The writing of this film is awful. The characters don't grow, they just go from point A at the start to point B at the end with no progression. Po goes from this unwise kung fu guy who can't accept his fate of becoming spiritual leader to the wise mentor of Zhen at the end. Meanwhile, Zhen goes from a sneaky thief who's exploited to being like, oh no, I'm the reason that Po got caught by the chameleon, it's all my fault, I'm so sad, directly after she helped him get caught. I think there should have been more character growth in between the scene where Po gets caught and Zhen is like, oh, I'm a bad person, boo hoo. She should have to deal with that and process it instead of having to some cheap, poorly written conversation with Po's dads for 10 seconds. Not to mention in this conversation, it was like they were reading the footnotes, followed by the intended dialogue. They had to literally spell it out to the audience instead of using a technical, now I don't know if you've heard of it, subtlety. And oh my god, they massacred the villain. The chameleon is such an interesting concept that they could have done so much with. She had somewhat of a cheesy motive of, oh, I can't do kung fu, but it was good enough for the series and it was at least something. And her character design is really cool, and her ability of shapeshifting is something that they could have used better. They could have made her like some sort of overbearing villain that follows Po and Zhen on their journey and causes some form of trouble, but she doesn't. In fact, the final battle is her using the staff that Po has to summon people from the spirit realm and steals their powers, making her this overwhelmingly strong villain that is unstoppable. But what makes it worse is that she's beaten with basically just one skaboom from Zhen. I guess it's their substitute for character growth. In general, this movie made me want to tear my eyes out of my skull, because the plot and concept could have been really good if it was in the hands of a better director. I was genuinely surprised to find out that 2 of the 3 writers were involved in the first 3, and yet this one is written so much worse. It was as if they just submitted the first draft and left it at that. I think my friend Eric said it best. Kung Fu Panda 4 was like if the most perfect burger got chewed up, shat out, process gets repeated 8 times, then you cook it and it's burnt. They were in a perfectly good trilogy because money. I have Kung Fu Panda at a 5 out of 5, and this slop made from a script dug out of a bin from behind the CX is an insult both to audiences and film, assuming that people will praise the film purely because it's in the universe of a well-loved franchise. I gave this film a 2.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd, and in hindsight I think that's too generous, so I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry for the lack of film footage. The DVD comes out at the end of the year here, and I'm not risking a virus for this. This is my first review in video form, so please do the usual things, subscribe, like the video, and follow me on Letterboxd at CosmicSoda. After talking to a few friends, I decided I probably should do film reviews after I'm a film student with Letterboxd account and too much time on their hands. It's honestly surprising that I haven't made some sooner. Please comment some films you want me to watch and talk about, and I will do my best to get through them. Or comment your own thoughts on Kung Fu Panda 4, and I will see you next time.